All right, from all let's bring in Kentucky Congressman and House Oversight Committee Chairman, the great James Comer. Congressman, good to see you. So, we just listened to Grady Tremble's report. He's talking about Americans having more credit card debt and they have less savings, and inflation is affecting every family. We're talking about debt and trying to rein some spending back. Are Democrats on the Hill starting to understand that spending and inflation go together?
No, they're not. They do not understand the basic concept of inflation. We warned of inflation when the Democrats continued to spend in the name of COVID. We all stood on the floor and said, you cannot print money without there being unintended consequences. And the main unintended consequence of too much spending is inflation. So we have inflation, and you would think, Sean, that they get it, but they don't. They want to spend more money. That's their answer to every problem in America, is to spend more money.
Because money equals control and power that will be difficult to take away from them. Congressman, one of the top progressives on Capitol Hill is warning of major consequences if Biden gives any ground to Republicans. Listen to this.
I think there would be a huge backlash from our entire House Democratic, caucus, certainly the progressives, but also in the streets. I think that it's important that we don't take steps back.
What is she even talking about? You voted the debt ceiling bill out of the House. What is she threatening?
I don't know. If I were Joe Biden, I would get the progressive caucus, Ms. Jay Powell and the squad and all that bunch in and say, look, I've gone your route. We've adopted your policies, and look where we are. We're in a disaster. The economy is struggling because of inflation. We have an energy crisis because of inflation. We're having shortages because of the burdensome rules and regulations that the progressives made Joe Biden implement on day one. So if I were Joe Biden, I would say, look, we've done it your way and it's not working, so we're going to have to do it the Republican way and try to be the adult in the room and try to get spending under control.
And here's the problem. In 2008, when the financial crisis hit, government spent more, but after the crisis, it reduced its spending. During COVID, the government spent more. Now the crisis is over, and Joe Biden's budget says he wants to spend even more money than we did during COVID. You look at the debt chart or the spending chart, and it goes through the roof with Joe Biden's budget. You would think, Congressman, that Democrats would say, you know what, we actually have to pare spending down. We're $32 trillion in debt. Do you think we get a debt deal negotiation with Democrats just wanting, hell-bent on spending more money?
No, we're not going to budge on spending. We have to reduce spending. When the voters are asked what their biggest issue is right now, inflation is at the top of the list. The way to reduce inflation is to reduce unnecessary spending. And for the Democrats to stand in front of the American people and say there's not one penny of waste in the federal government, that's preposterous. I think every taxpayer who goes to work sees government waste everywhere they look. And we've got to get spending under control. That will get inflation under control, and that'll try to, get savings back up, and all the problems that you mentioned in the monologue. All of the problems that we have in America now are a direct result of Joe Biden's bad policies, and because he is doing everything that his progressive wing tells him to do. This is one instance where Joe Biden's going to have to put his foot down and say, we're going to have to go with the Republican plan.
Right. The far left, Jayapal and AOC, they just seem shocked that Biden isn't listening to them for the first time in 2 years and some months. And speaking of people not being able to afford their most basic needs and necessities, too many people are struggling to afford prescriptions. 1/5 of older Americans have had to skip or delay medications because the cost of those drugs is too high. And your committee addressed this today on Capitol Hill. Congressman, tell us more about what you found out.
Well, you can't have a serious discussion about the cost of prescription drugs if you don't look at the pharmacy benefit managers, or PBMs. They're what I consider an unnecessary middleman in the process. They were created to help negotiate drug prices, but what's happened over time is they've become entities, for-profit entities that have been bought out by the pharmacy chains, by the mail order pharmacies, by every health insurers, everyone in the healthcare chain, to the point to where now they're vertically integrated and they're actually increasing the cost of medication. So for once on the House Oversight Committee, there was bipartisan agreement that these PBMs need to be reined in. We identified the problem today, and we made a pledge in the House Oversight Committee, which is the least partisan committee in the history of Congress. We made a pledge today to work together to try to root out the unnecessary middleman in the PBMs and try to add some transparency to the process to where people know what the cost of medication is going in, and try to make prescription medication more affordable, not just to those of us with private health insurance, but for Medicare and Medicaid. So our committee's focused on trying to reduce savings. But again, you know, as a general rule, the Democrats in this U.S. Capitol, they think the answer to all of America's problems are to spend more money.
Congressman, the FBI has seemed to have done an about-face on you because you and Speaker McCarthy both were confident you'd get the documents that said or showed that there was a bribery scheme with Joe Biden. But the FBI is not now going to hand those documents over. Can you give us the latest update, and what steps will you take? Will you impeach Christopher Wray? Will you sue him? Will you cut their funding? How do you actually get those documents that the FBI has that you so desperately want?
Well, I've subpoenaed them, and he's stuck his nose up in the air. I mean, the arrogance that's being displayed by the FBI director, not just with my investigation, but with the Gang of Eight on trying to determine what documents that Joe Biden had in his possession at 4 different locations. It's breathtaking. So we're going to go to the next level to try to get these documents. And it's not just about the documents. We also want to know what they did to investigate this allegation. We're confident the document exists, even though the FBI won't admit it. We want to know what the FBI did to determine whether or not this allegation was true or not, because as you know, what we've proven already, there's a pattern of behavior around the world where Joe Biden, when he was vice president, would meet with a country and then payments would be made from foreign nationals into Biden bank accounts. So this is something that's very concerning to us in our investigation.
Before you go, the top Democrat on the Oversight Committee has blasted your investigations, claiming this is all about politics. In response to your interview on Fox and Friends First yesterday, Congressman Jamie Raskin said, quote, "It's amazing to me that the chairman of the Oversight Committee openly measures the progress of his work by Donald Trump's poll numbers. Comer's comment tells the world that these wild goose chase probes are all about one thing: helping Donald Trump claw his way back into the White House."
And I guess it's a good point, because wouldn't it seem right that Jamie Raskin, who led the impeachment of Donald Trump, he was concerned about Donald Trump's low poll numbers. You're not. You're concerned about the truth.
Yeah, if I were Jamie Raskin, I would dig a hole and stick my head in it like an ostrich. He's been wrong on so many things. It's embarrassing listening to him comment on our investigation. When we subpoenaed the first bank records, he said there was nothing there except receipts to Papa John's and dance recitals. He left out the part about the $3 million wire from China to the Biden family. So he's not credible in this investigation. He's just an unnecessary obstacle along the way. Look, when I was referencing poll numbers, it had nothing to do with Donald Trump. It had to do with the fact that the American people overwhelmingly believe that public corruption is a problem, and they're concerned about how Joe Biden's family got this money from foreign nationals. That's what I was referencing in the polling. The polling shows the American people are keeping up with our investigation. It has nothing to do with Donald Trump.
Right. Lifetime politicians making money off the backs of taxpayers in nefarious ways for themselves and their family members. And by the way, where I'm from, we say stick it where the sun doesn't shine, Congressman.
That's right.
Congressman James Comer, thanks for joining us. Keep up the good work.
Thanks for having me.